Play Upstream Podcast.
Hi, everyone. This is Marissa Pitts and MPT.
Hello.
And we are our host today for the Play Upstream podcast. We are here today with a fight a day, and our guests are Mal Wilson, Selena Cerniak, Mark Leclerc, and we're going to talk about all things fight related, woo, 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 which is exciting. And let me go ahead and switch everything over to a gallery so that we can see all of your beautiful, pretty faces. Here we are. Yay, there we are. Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, how are y'all doing today?
Good.
Great.
Yeah,
Awesome.
early morning, kind of getting going. So let's just jump right into it. So, Mark, what is a fight a day?
A fight a day it started out as a way for me to keep myself accountable in my own training. It started out as me trying to make sure that every day I was doing something to make myself better at this skill that I wanted to develop. I was out of college for a few years and I felt like I kind of let some of my training lapse, and I wanted to sort of buckle down and just keep fighting every day. And then the thought came up in my head, well, if I'm doing that, I also want to fight for certain things that I think are valuable to our society. I wanted to make sure that we were always, or I was thinking about who are the people who are really fighting in the world every day, and bring a light to that if I can, bring links to donations for things like cancer research or Black Lives Matter or whatever it might be, and try to make a small change, whatever I can in that world, and also to keep myself accountable through,
Nice.
and I post through Instagram. Yeah.
Yes, nice. Well, we do have a clip that I'd like to share of the fight. Hold on, it's going to take me a second to throw this all on here. All right. And if you all can just quickly turn off your videos so we can see it. And this is Mark and Mal in the park. Oh, we don't have sound. Hold on. Let's do that one again. Dun, dun, dun. Sound always helps. All right.
It does look to be
rewind
muted
this.
there.
It did look to be good, but the sound makes it better. Here we are. I like the nod at the very end.
You got to make sure your partner's good, right? You got to make
You know what? It reminded me so much of like that Macbeth ending. Where they go in.
Where he cuts his
Yeah.
head
Oops.
off. Wow.
Yeah,
Hold on. I think I got your Facebook still going. There we go. Yay! Gotta love Zoom and the technology. Woo! Let me tell you. That's great. Have you ever had it where you were practicing in a park and someone like called the cops?
That park in particular is actually known for having us around it and our fight family around it. So no, they're always just like, oh, it's those people. And there's also martial artists who are there, and there's a bunch of people. It seems like a very movement heavy and education heavy park. So no, we've never really had an issue.
They'll sometimes come by, but then they'll just kind of stop and watch us and then
Yeah.
continue because
And then-
they can tell that we're not actually hurting each other.
Yeah, and really not like the real screams like help, help.
However, I will say I have been saved by many a cute dog in the middle of practicing that have come up and run to check on me to make sure I was okay.
So sweet. I love that.
I have had so many dogs run up to me because I'm very small, so usually I end up on the ground or like everything like that. And like I've had little poofy white dogs come running dead speed down the park to come and like stand between me and whoever my fight partner was, and it's probably the most validating, like, oh, you care that I've ever had.
I love that. So how did you three meet? Like what, I know, Mark, you started the idea with a fight a day, but how has this now interweaved together?
Selena, you wanna handle that one?
Sure. Yeah, we met in college originally, and we were all in different semesters, so we were kind of spread out in our enrollment. But we ended up joining some of the training that our mentors were doing in this particular park. So we ended up training extra once we graduated, and we kind of just solidified in there and like became really good friends, worked together a ton, and realized that the three of us were pretty good at throwing each other around and not like complaining about it. So we just kept going. And yeah, we got tighter over the years. We've started working together on jobs, or if one of us can't, we hand it off to another one of us. And we kind of just became our own like unit. But we originally met in college and then the extra training in the park.
What college was this?
AMDA College and Conservatory for the Dramatic Arts.
ABDA. Okay. And was there a specifically a stage combat teacher that was formative for y'all three?
Oh yeah,
We had a bunch.
we had a bunch. It's one of the biggest stage combat departments in the country. It's in LA, on the LA campus. We had about 12 or 13 different instructors, and in the New York campus, it was about 7 or 8 roughly. So I ended up training at both campuses. I'm not sure. Did you, Mark?
Yep.
You did? Yeah. So we ended up having like a really big influence, but we still work with some of them now who are very, very near and dear to us, and we're pretty much colleagues at this point. But yeah, it was really cool to find that journey from college into the real world.
Yeah. And to add on to that, it feels like from my memory of things, when I was in Henry V with UMPT, we actually had an opportunity to bring Mal and Selena on, and that kind of was around the time when we were like, oh, we should do this together. We should all be in the same team. And then we really started getting going after that production, or during that production, rather.
Yeah,
And I
would
think that
also
was. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mal.
I would also say that we were in the production of Henry together, and we were also, us three were assisting those same teachers in the park, and we kind of had just our time together because we were assisting instead of taking the class. So that was another time that we really were able to bond.
Nice. And now obviously that was all pre-COVID, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that was years ago.
Years ago.
Oh yeah. When was Henry V was what year was that?
I want to say
20
5 years ago now.
Wow.
It was 2018. Yeah, it was 2018 because it was right after a contract that Mal and I had on the East Coast. So,
So what now, because we have COVID, so what now are you doing in a fight a day to obviously adhere to COVID rules? Things have changed, the physicality, mass. So what does that now look like for fight a day?
Currently, we're actually working on a few different projects that we're shooting ourselves. We're keeping our crew low. We're keeping the vaccinations, correct throughout our productions, and making sure that we're all set and we all know what we're doing and we're all safe on set. But we have 2 that we've shot already that are currently being edited by Selena. Thank you very much, Selena. And then we have 2 more that we're going to be working on in a little bit. They're a little bit maybe more complicated than the ones that we've already shot, so we want to take a little more time with those, but hopefully that's going to be part of it, as well as Mal is constantly on set. Selena is constantly coordinating stuff. I'm constantly teaching and coordinating and doing all sorts of stuff, so we're keeping up the skills, like we say, a fight a day. And we're trying to create more content for ourselves to spread out, and obviously the podcast coming up. So
yeah. And why do you think for people that can think you can just go up on any production and just do a fight because it's all make believe? Why is it important to have a fight, a licensed and certified fight choreographer on set?
I think it comes down to understanding that let's say you really like skiing. And you're like, I'm going to go skiing. I'm going to be the best skier ever. And you decide, you look at a black diamond and you're like, I'm new to skiing. I can totally do that. It's kind of the same thing for fights. You look at it and it looks super cool. And you're like, oh, I know the basics. It shouldn't be that hard. But a fight choreographer coming in is someone who's like the seasoned skier, the one who's constantly trained these, knows all the dangers that someone who's brand new doesn't really recognize right off the bat. So it comes down to like understanding and that it takes a team to make a project, and putting your ego aside, that you don't have to be in charge of everything. This is mostly for directors who are like, I could totally choreograph this right now. It's like, great, yes, you can. But if you were focused on the scene work, that might be a better use of your time. Bring in a professional to come do this, make it look a million times better, and also be able to keep an eye on all the safety stuff. Because oftentimes, if you're just an actor in a production, or you're the director or the stage manager or anything, you're focused on other things related to safety. You're focusing on the set building. You're focusing on this. The fight choreographer or the director or the stunt coordinator can come in and be like, cool, that platform is not good to jump off of. I know it looks cool for you, but you're not going to want to jump off that. And the team who's already on the project needs to be like, great, thank you for that note, let's make it safer and not make people jump off things. So we're pretty much the advocates for safety, but also we've been training in choreography for a long time. We know what things are historically. We know techniques and skills and everything to make a story with a fight. Otherwise it just looks like two people catfighting or more people catfighting, and it doesn't really tell a story.
And I think I like how you said that about if you saw like an actor on a platform and like, oh, that might not be safe. So you're actually an advocate also for the actor's safety. Because I know for myself, I mean, years ago when I first started acting, there was a gun on the set. It was a fake gun, had the orange tip and the whole nine. So that at least was regulations. But he was supposed to hold the gun up to my head and so on, and then like, I give him my purse or something. I don't know what it was, the scene. Well, he actually shoved the gun into my mouth, past my teeth. And he's a director too. So he was the actor, wow, the director, and the writer. Fun. And I almost felt my teeth were going to knock out. And I didn't, because we didn't have a fight choreographer or safety on that set, low budget, obviously, non-union at the time. I just kept going. And I just remember almost wanting to cry and feeling so powerless. And he's like, that was such a great shot. And I was like, you're a jerk. Like, completely, how dare you do that? Like, what if you did knock out my teeth? Or even just, how about that conversation? Like, we're improv-ing, how awesome. No. I wish you were on that set to have stopped it.
Yeah, that's definitely most of our jobs, is outlining exactly what you can and can't do and setting those boundaries beforehand so those boundaries don't get crossed. I think for me, a big thing is whenever I'm on set, coordinating or something like that, most of the time at the very end, someone comes up to me and says, thank you for being here. This person would have gotten hurt if you were not there. And that is just like very validating and very much being like, thank you, because you do want to keep everyone safe. And unfortunately, that story that you have of this person shoving a gun in your mouth, which is not okay at all, unfortunately, that's pretty normal and pretty standard. And I think very often all of us have to come in and do a complete gun safety talk and talk about the different things you need to do. And most people in that room haven't taken a gun safety course at all, or a weapon safety course, or they don't know that you're not supposed to touch props, or people just don't know. And it's something that is assumed, but not everyone knows that. So it's very nice to have someone like us on board to really be the one person to make sure that none of that happens.
In addition to that, we're telling make-believe stories. We're telling, the whole thing about an actor is holding a mirror up to nature, but that's a mirror. It's an illusion. You're not actually showing reality. So you get those actors who are super gung-ho to do something, and you're like, yeah, logically, that's how that move works. But do you want to be able to stand tomorrow? There's only some stuff that you can do only one time. So it's like, why traumatize people, especially actors, with elements of choreography or moments when you're already telling a difficult story? Like, you can tell the exact same story without harming anybody. And I think that's our job as well.
Yeah, and I think on that note, because we do have obviously the tragedy of the loss on the Rust set with Helena Hutchins, who was the director of photographer who was shot on set along with the director, but her tragedy was the loss of her life, and there's no getting that back. And right now, we do hear conversations in the industry about what should now happen on sets with guns. Never should there be live bullets. So obviously there was a live bullet on set. So how did that even get there? And then even dealing with blanks. I mean, we had the problem with on the Crow set with Bruce Lee's son, who was
Brendan Lee.
also, yes, who was also killed. And that was by a blank. I mean, granted, at the time that blank had a rubber tip. And so that industry now changed it to have the cardboard. But even still, having a gun that can actually fire live bullets in any way, I don't understand how that can always be safe. And what are your takes on, what do you think? Obviously, you're not an armorer, but being in this industry, what do you think the television and film standards, and even I think theater has a better control on this? I think we've always been safer, to be honest. We get the make believe, the mirror image, we don't have to actually use a reel to show. But what do you think the industry should look at doing? Having cops on set, or what are your thoughts on this?
I think first and foremost, the conversation around, well, one, the live round being on set was such a weird and abnormal, truly thing to happen. That whoever that armorer was, there's been a lot of conversations about her. Whoever that producer was, a lot of conversations about him. Should have already said, excuse me, immediately that shouldn't happen. That's a no-go. We're not having the live round. I can't think of more than maybe a handful of situations in which you need a shot with a live round. The only thing I can think about is if you're shooting a film or a scene where somebody's at a range and you want to see them shoot and hit a target or shoot and make a hole in a target. But even then, there's ways around that. You can do that without a live round. So the live round, gone, right? There's no reason for it. And the blank round could also be gone because of the advancements with CGI and the advance with, creating that illusion through technical means. Then you're solving your problem automatically. And now you can have a non-firing replica. You could have rubber weapons on set that if you drop them, if something goes wrong, nobody gets hurt. You might drop it on your foot and bust your toe, but that's about the worst that's going to happen, right? So there just seems to be no reason anymore to have a blank on a set. And frankly, there's very few theatrical situations where I think a blank is called for. There's so many, theatrical ways of telling that story. And you have in the theater, which I love, theater's my heart, there's so many cool ways to tell that story. Like if you look at Hamilton, they did a really cool version of that at the end of the show, right? Where they do the shot on the turntable and it looks really, really beautiful. So there's just, I can't think of any more reasons to say, yep, we got to hold on to it, other than it's a bunch of old stunt coordinators kind of saying, no, but this is the way.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you touched on the old. Yeah, go ahead, Selena, because I'll say I like how you touched on the old people. No, Selena, go ahead. Your thoughts too.
It also comes down to who is checking it. It comes down to who hands over the weapons. You look at a set, and it's the same on in the theater as well, but there is a very specific protocol of who is allowed to handle the guns, where are they stored, how many times they are checked. Like, technically, it's the armorer who's in charge of the weapons, period. The fact that the first AD was the one to hand it over is a huge red flag for me. Like, when I'm on set and I'm handling firearms, it's like, cool, where's your armorer or your props master? Great. Discuss with them what the protocol is for who's allowed to hold this, who is not. Every person that, like, the only people who are allowed to touch it are the actors who are supposed to be handling it, and the stunt coordinator and the armorer. That's it. So the fact that a first AD was the one who handed over the weapon and said cold weapon is a huge red flag, because he didn't check it. Because basically what I will do is, let's say I'm going to give it to an actor. Great. I have the armorer with me. I'm like, okay, perfect. Do you want to come with me to set? Great. We go on to set. We open up the case. I open the gun to the actor and to everybody who's in the vicinity. Look, it's empty. Nothing is in here. Close it. and then offline demo and just making sure everything is fine. Okay, great. Your rule actor person is you're not allowed to fire. You're not allowed to click the trigger unless it's ready for the shot. You're treating this like a live weapon. You don't muzzle this in the wrong way. You don't point the muzzle of the gun towards anybody or anything. You point it towards the ground, and you only are allowed to do specific choreo with it. Another safety thing is everything always goes offline. You're supposed to keep the gun pointed away, and that's my cat's ghostly shadow in the corner.
I like the blurred image.
I know,
I have my
right?
daughter running up.
So what you're saying is there's a specific chain of custody that has to be whether on stage or behind the or in front of the camera. There's a specific chain of custody that has to be adhered to
Yes.
to be safe.
Absolutely. And if you don't follow it, that's where this stuff happens. If the first AD had checked it, if the armorer was the one who handed it over and checked it, there would have been a drastically lower chance of something like this happening.
But also, I
And-
have to now counter this a little bit, because guess who asked for the gun? Alec Baldwin. And I am not throwing Alec Baldwin under the bus by any means in that sense, but here's where I am throwing him under the bus. He is the producer on that show.
Right.
It is Alec Baldwin, the star. And they carry, not only being a producer, but being a star, an A-list actor. There is a weight that they carry. And if he looked over at that AD and says, hand me the gun, I'm on break right now, I want to play with it, I want to hold it and get into character, or whatever it was, that he decided to use it outside of how they were shooting, that person is not going to question him.
Right.
They're going to get the gun and they're going to hand it to him. And maybe that person asked, hey, is this one okay? I mean, because obviously she didn't check it, right? Is this one going to be okay? And so it then falls down from the chain of command, because him as a producer knows better. Just right
There's
there.
also, no, absolutely. And speaking of that, one of the things that I am currently in-depth studying is power dynamics in the entertainment industry. There's a essay, I can't remember the author off the top of
Ooh.
my head, and I'll let you know.
Shoot
who.
me some
But
books.
it's-
Email me the books you're
Oh,
reading, please.
absolutely, absolutely.
Please.
But it's the 7 dynamics of power, basically, and it's talking about 7 different elements of power that people can hold in varying degrees. You have, there's the expert power, which is if you are an expert in your field. There's reference power. You have the power to hand over somebody. There's also coercion, which is this sort of power, which would be this situation. And there's more. It can go even more and more in depth. But you look at this and you realize that the last 100 years or so of the entertainment industry, film specifically, has been embedded with these power dynamics and these ideologies of ego and succession and understanding that, oh, because I've been here the longest, I'm the head honcho. Like, we were recently on a set with a very high level celebrity who listened to us, who listened to the order of how things should go. And that is what you're supposed to do. You have to put your ego aside. You have to put whatever you believe you are due with either people listening to you or quote unquote respect or whatever. You have to put that aside, because when it comes down to stuff like this, it's a safety issue. And we're hoping to alter those power dynamics in the industry moving forward, but it is definitely an uphill battle with what Mark was saying about the older stunt coordinators in the industry and older actors and just A-list egos. Egos are fun, friends.
Well, say you run into an egotistical actor on set, or an egotistical, some sort of egotistical resistance on a camera, on a film set. How do you guys deal with that?
It's one of those things where, unfortunately, honestly, that answer is going to be very different for me than it is for Selena and than it is for Maul, right?
Yeah.
My voice for a lot of male actors is just different than when they get a note from Selena or Maul. And I've seen it happen like in person, that I can say something to an actor and they will say something to an actor and it will be taken very differently. And unfortunately, that's part of the problem, right? That's part of, the expectation of what a coordinator should look like or should be. And that's unfortunately an issue. But to that point, like that aside, you gotta make sure that there is an establishment of, hey, this is actually how it's going to go, and we're not really playing the well what if game, right? It's just, no, for the purposes of safety, this actually has to be what it is. There's kind of no way around it. Artistically, we can talk about what the moment can be and how we can create this moment, what you want it to look like, but at a certain point there are hard yes and no's when it comes to safety. Like in a situation where maybe an actor or a director says, can we point this gun point blank at their head, and we ask the question, what kind of gun is it, right? If it is something that can fire around, I'm not doing it. I'm just not going to do it. There's a great scene in Mission Impossible, I think it's the first or second one, very famous scene where there's a knife that comes down towards Tom Cruise's eye, and it stops centimeters from his eyeball. The way they did that was they just had an actor rigged, or the stunt person rigged here, so that they couldn't go any farther when the shot came in. I mean, you can try and get that. Part of the reason that very incredibly dangerous stunt got done was because Tom Cruise was a producer.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't even know if I would trust like a rig
Right.
to stop something before it goes into my eyeball.
Right.
I don't know about that one. That's a lot of trust.
It's a lot of trust. I mean, I think that there were some shots in that, granted, that were offline where it looks like the blade is above the eye, but it really wasn't. So artistically, you can talk about, hey, how can we get the same visual, but without the danger aspect? And that's where Mal and Selena and I have to go, I have an idea because of our experience of being on these sets, of seeing different tricks of the trade, and giving them those options, because it just might be one of those things that a director or an actor simply hasn't thought about. They're like, oh, I've never seen that done, because they're not around it day after day. And that's where we can come in and just help the process, make the process faster in some ways, and slower in some ways in terms of rehearsal, but faster in some ways of just coming up with the idea and having that Rolodex of illusions that we can come up with. But Mal and Selena, I don't know, when it comes to, egos for you being very different from, my experiences with actors, how does that happen for you?
You go ahead and take this, Mal,
Oh, me?
if you want to.
I think you
Mal,
guys
you're
work
thrown
with
under the bus.
actors.
It's all you.
I mean, I think they both work with actors a lot more than I do. And I tend to, I don't know. I feel like people listen to me, so I really feel like this is not my question to answer.
That's fair. So
Yeah.
for me, I just wanted to make sure you went. So for me, it's more of I run into this issue, especially with men, and especially if they are bigger men. I am a very small person. I also look fairly femme as well. So while I can command a room very well, and I'm very good at my job, I have a deep, loud voice, and people listen. When I get into issues with actors, usually it's older, bigger men, to the point where it has gone to like belittling intelligence. It has gone to, oh, it doesn't actually work this way. Let me show you. To the point where I have had male actors come and charge at me in a tackle to prove me wrong, where I actually end up throwing them across the room instead. And I'm like, you're going to listen to me now. And then they finally listen. I have thrown multiple men across the room, and mostly because they don't believe that what I'm saying is accurate. It comes down to, almost with some people who have this idea that they're this big macho dude, thinking that they know better than the small Hispanic girl. And it's unfortunate, because I've also watched a lot of men get jobs that I'm overqualified for, that they don't have nearly as much training. So for me, what I end up doing with actors, especially actors if I'm a coordinator or a fight director, who are coming at me with big egos, it's very much like, great, establishing very early that what I say is what goes, and I'm willing to listen to alternative suggestions if it's given to me in respect. If they have a safety boundary they want to voice, great, please tell me. If you feel uncomfortable doing this particular move, please tell me. But the second men start, and I will specifically say men, because I usually don't get this from women ever, or other humans in general, it's establishing early on that I do know what I'm talking about, and also making sure that I'm always there. If they go off to discuss something with the director about the fight, I am there. If they go to their fellow castmates and they're trying to rehearse something, I'm there. I don't really let them go off, because then they get a semblance of, oh, I'm in charge of this situation, and won't listen to me when I call something important on set. So the last time this happened, it was literally 2 days before shutdown in quarantine, where I had a huge shoot in a textile factory downtown, and someone had to get shoulder checked running down this hallway. And it was a couple of older guys, but the main one who was getting shoulder checked, was the one who had an issue with. And because of where we were and the type of floor it was and the type of check it had to be at a full-blown run, I had to edit and cheat some things, because otherwise he was going to go sprawling against a giant machine or onto the concrete or whatever. And we didn't have crash pads that day, because this was an unplanned stunt that we were doing. So he decided that, oh, this doesn't make sense. My trajectory would just keep going straight. And I go, you need to edit it. You need to go off to the side. And he kept fighting me, and he looked at me and he goes, fine, let me show you. Let me show you what I mean. And he comes at me at a deadbolt run.
Oh my gosh.
And yes, comes at me with a deadbolt run, and I side tackle him over to the side, and he didn't think it would work, and it did. So it's a very interesting thing when it comes with those situations in general, because sometimes it comes down to me actually physically having to prove myself in some things, which has happened recently as well within the last 2 months, to where I had to physically show that I know what I'm doing and toss someone across the room. Unfortunately, the majority of the people I've had to toss across the room to show them, yes, I do know what I'm talking about, in a safe manner, fully like, here's what the move is. Please listen to me in all kindness and respect, but I'm going to show you what it is. Unfortunately, it's been men.
Yeah, and that's
That
unfortunate.
sounds
But at least
kind
you
of sounds like prison. You got to get the biggest, baddest prisoner and throw him across the yard.
Yeah.
And I like how you take control and you actually make sure that you are in the room talking to the director, and not just assuming the director is going to say, oh, hey, make sure you get our fight choreographer here for this discussion, because that doesn't always happen. Mal, how has fight choreography changed over time, especially now that there are a lot more women in the field?
Well, there's actually people who are specialized in it now. I think before, back in the day, it was very much just go out and do it. Like, where it started was really like the Keystone Cops, and they got, I don't remember where it was, but they started on the East Coast, and they were like driven out of that town because everyone hated them, because they would just like run around and there'd be like someone with a camera behind them. So, and that continued when they moved to Hollywood. It was very much started like, just go for it. Like, you kind of see Buster Keaton and like Charlie Chaplin are just kind of doing it, and they are the ones that are highly trained. We don't even hear about stories about people getting hurt on those sets because they did not care. And then it kind of has progressed with people being like, okay, we've learned more, and now we have people who are so specialized in their one individual thing. There's people who specialize in burns, fire burns. There's people who specialize in high falls. There's people who specialize in tricking. There's people who specialize in fighting. Like, everything is so like specific now than it ever has been before, I think.
And if an actor wanted to get more training within it, your Fight a Day does offer classes for that, or how does that also work if someone wants to get certified through you?
So certification is an interesting word to use, because it's one of those things that in the stunt world is actually sort of looked down upon. The idea of you can learn this in a school, or you can get a certification, suddenly you're an expert. Not so much with firearms. Firearm certifications are taken a little more seriously, but there's a lot of weird ego around, oh, you got your training from this person, or you got your training from this person, and that doesn't mean a lot on set. In theater, however, that does actually mean a lot. If you look through the Society of American Fight Directors, that is an organization that throughout the country, if you tell them that you are trained through that society, they tend to say, oh, that's really nice. That's a good certification to have. So certifications are weird. right? Just first and foremost. That being said, we all offer private coaching, right? Many times we'll have somebody come up to us and say, I have an audition for this. I've had a couple people like, I have an audition for Power Rangers. Can I have a couple, like, and I'm sure we've all, like, there was a big audition.
I did Power Ranger auditions too. I help people with that also.
I wish I had a Power Ranger audition so I could have you help me. That sounds like so much fun.
And then you go, yeah, absolutely. I can help you with that audition, give you some moves, make you look good. It could be that they want us to come in for just to get general training in a specific weapon style, and we'll do private coaching. Currently, we are working on figuring out how we can have a class schedule that would actually be a little more regular. But for the most part, it's a lot of just individual training because, unfortunately, it's one of those things that currently in the industry, fight training is just, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, I better go get trained in it right now. Whereas previously, and this was kind of something I wanted to talk about where you were talking about it, Mal, sword fighting, way back in the day when you look at Errol Flynn and when you look at actors like Errol Flynn, the idea of like sword fighting was every actor was trained in that. They also took training in fencing, but they had
even back like Shakespearean actors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Way back.
The education just was different. You, as an actor, you were expected to know how to fight with a sword. That was just a given. And every training program had, multiple classes, and everybody was just assumed, you know how to do this. And there were even things called stock phrases, where it was literally a phrase of fight that everybody knew. Maybe it was like bell clangers, and every actor knows, oh, bell clangers, okay, I got it. Bing, 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 bing. And they just did it because that was a stock phrase, and that's how they would build their fights. They would do stock phrase after stock phrase after stock phrase, and then maybe you hang off the chandelier, and then you go back to a stock phrase, right? So that's how fights would be developed back then. Now it's kind of weird because the fights have gotten more complex, right? We choreograph individually move by move, but less actors have training. And it's a very strange dynamic in the industry right now where I can't remember the last time I was on a set where I felt confident about an actor, like knowing, oh yeah, I know how to do this stuff. They will say they do. And then you
Okay. So guilty of that. I'm like, oh yeah, I totally got this. Absolutely. I took like one class in my BA, or my MA. I'm like, hey, let me throw you over my hip, 5 years ago. I got this.
Yeah, it's honestly one of those things that in education and in these conservatory programs, a lot of times they just want to put that on the program and say, yep, we offer this thing. And then actors are going, great, I did that one thing 10 years ago. And now it's to protect yourself. I totally understand it because you coming in as an actor, you want to go, yes, I know how to do this. Please give me the job. Whereas if you're like, I don't feel so confident, there's this idea that maybe you won't get the job because of saying no, which is also a big part of our industry is this, say yes always culture, which tends to be dangerous in a lot of different ways. Selena actually was talking to me about this and talking to a cast of actors that I'm working with about this recently. And it's just a conversation we need to have. Like saying no is okay. You should be able to say, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. No, I don't know that, and not have it affect your castability or not have it affect your job, because you can't know everything. And the second that you say that you do, then that's when people start to get hurt.
For a director or a producer looking to hire a fight choreographer to help out, what would be some of the skills that they should look for when trying? Obviously, they should go to a fight a day. I'm just going to throw that one out there. But if they're also looking around, what would be the skill set that they should see for someone that they want to bring on as a fight choreographer?
They should go via recommendation. If they know people who have done shows or shoots or whatever, and they're like, we had a fight choreographer on set, they were good, listen to them. Because oftentimes, because this goes into the whole thing about you talking about training, it's about who you know. And a lot of us have learned most of our stuff unofficially. Like, we have met people who know how to do a certain thing, and we've been like, can you please teach me? I'll teach you something. And it's kind of turned into that. So I believe that for directors, producers, etc., if they need someone, go and talk to someone who has definitely worked with one before. Hopefully one that you actually saw the choreography for. Most of the jobs I get are through word of mouth, which I'm very grateful for and very fortunate for. But like gigs I did 5 years ago are referring me to people. So it comes down to the director should ask for a recommendation first. Second, what they should do is they should have a meeting with whoever they choose to like hire, and they sit down with them, make sure you get a good vibe, make sure you vibe with this particular fight director or stunt coordinator, and make sure that your visions are aligned and that you can accomplish each other's goals. Because if you go in and you're just like, especially for not super high budget things, especially if it's smaller productions, smaller gigs, etc., definitely sit down and chat, because you're probably already bare bones on your set anyway. You're gonna want to be able to communicate with your person well. And if it's a good stunt coordinator or a good fight director, they're very good at being like, great, what do you need? Tell me what you want and I'll give you what you want, but you need to tell me exactly how far you want it to go. And doing that and having a meeting prior, involving them in pre-production as much as possible. Don't like, there's plenty of jobs out there where we get called in on the day and you kind of just have to be like, okay, cool, I'm going to figure this out. But if you're able to get a fight director or a stunt coordinator in pre-production with you to discuss things, it is so much easier to coordinate with wardrobe, coordinate with hair and makeup, because that's the definition of a coordinator, is you have to coordinate between many different departments. So I think that a lot of it comes down to is asking for a good recommendation, meeting with the person who's potentially vying for the job, look at their resume and call people. If you know people on that resume, call them, ask how they are in a room, how do they teach people, what is their energy like, whether or not their choreo is stellar. Regardless, because most of the time it's not a huge fight, it's not a massive fight, it's more often like, here's some falls, here's some punches, here's some tussles or whatever. Figure out what other people have experienced working with them and determine if they are a good fit for your set. It comes down to communication. No one's going to get the stuff that they want if there is none of that.
And what is a fight a day? What are you gearing up for 2022? Do you have any projects in plan right now? Anything, just to look forward to?
We have a project that I wrote a few years ago, actually, that I wanted to get produced. A script about, I don't want to give too much away, but a script about essentially.
Be careful in the industry. All of a sudden, your idea, someone else is doing it. You're like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yeah, we can both do it.
With a very unique set of weapons. I'll say that. And we definitely want Mal to be the star of our little series, so that's heading up. And then Selena also has a project that she's written that we are going to work on in 2022. Once we get through the slog of editing the first two.
Yeah, I appreciate all y'all's patience. And then mine's very much more of a coordinator choreographer like centric style thing, where it's going to be like a mass battle, it's going to be multiple people, awesome urban grunge, like just down and dirty, and it's going to be a really fun thing. So we have some things ready, and we're finishing off the things we've been working on this year, and yeah, basically we're all just continuing to train and kick butt and stuff that we're doing. So it's constantly like, great, what am I doing to better my work? What am I doing to better my skills? What certifications do I need to re-up if I need them? What weapon styles do I want to learn because I've been asked to learn these? The three of us are pretty much continuously in that rotation where it's, great, what can I learn now? Great, what can I learn now? And understanding that there's a million things to learn and nobody knows everything, and having that ego check for ourselves and being like, great, and being able to bounce things off each other with full confidence that none of us are going to think badly of anything else, but we will offer suggestions and alternatives, and it's like a good core unit. So we're working on continuing to build in that direction and create some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I would say one thing I like about working with them too is that we all are out working on our own, and then each time we come back and work together and do more things, it's like every time we like get a little better at what we do and we come back and we're like, okay, I learned this, let's put this in. Like, all right, I really want to do this, I saw this. So it's nice that we're growing together and separately. So when we come, it's great. Anyway.
So you guys get to once you go off and learn a certain skill set, you get to then share it with each other at some point. So
Yeah.
each of you has an incredible drive to learn more and more things, like you said, different areas of stage combat and fight choreography. What initially for each one of you was that spark? What inspired you to do this?
Frankly, for me, it was my first class at AMDA, my first stage combat class, which I'm pretty sure now thinking back was my first class at AMDA, period. I think it was like 8 a.m. on Monday. You're heading into there and we're learning slaps, right? And it was something that I had touched on before, that I had done in productions. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then once I started to really understand it, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Also, probably because I was a huge WWE pro wrestling fan as a kid, still am. I just loved that stuff. I loved the grandiose opera nature of pro wrestling. And I would get on my parents' bed and jump and flip and, do a bunch of stuff on my own just because I wanted to practice. And
You
then
gave your parents a heart attack. As a mother to a 3-year-old, I'm like, God, please don't watch WWE.
the amount of times I busted my head open trying to do something when I was
That's why my nose slants slightly to the right, is because I broke it on a bedpost when we were doing Macho Man Randy Savage. Oh yeah.
I love it. So, yeah, that was my big spark, probably pro wrestling, and then my first class at AMDA, and just
Wow.
history.
Yeah, mine was more of an accident. I originally, like back when I was small, I'm not much larger now. I've been the same size since I was 12. So when I was in high school, I actually was on track to go into biochemistry or pre-law. That was my trajectory. And I needed an elective, so I took drama. And now I'm here. But when I started learning stage combat and everything, I loved it because I have a martial background, and it was a weird learning curve for me because I was like, we're cueing everybody, why? That tells everybody where I'm going, and it was a huge weird thing in my head. But I discovered that, oh, I'm not bad at this, and then I kept doing it, and I was like, oh, I'm actually really not bad at this, and it kind of just started somersaulting. And I discovered, for choreography specifically, because that's my primary focus, is choreo in general. I love doing it, but I really love choreographing it, is because I like problem solving and puzzles. And every time I'm given a new group of actors and a production team, I'm like, great, what tools do I have? Like, what types of people do I have? Skill level, etc. Great. What weapons do I have? Great. Now I've got to make a story that looks amazing with what I have. And like, while I love working with people I bring in who are stunties, and it's awesome, and I love it because I can go balls to the wall on what I do. I also like working with newer people because they're so excited. They're super excited to learn, and also
Maybe
like,
don't
they
have
want
any
to
bad
learn.
habits yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. They don't have like egos, they don't have bad habits, and it's a problem to solve. And I'm a very academic brain, so it's really fun for me to puzzle piece everything together step by step and see it come together organically. And they always enjoy it. They're like, I feel so cool. And I'm like, good, that's what you're supposed to feel.
And Mal, for you?
I guess I've always been super obsessed with swords. Growing up, my dad did sword tai chi, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So I got to like play with his weapons, and I like loved Lord of the Rings. And then I found a school that taught stage combat. And then one of the person who ran the department, when I went to go look at the school, there was like a stage combat demo, and he was like, oh, so one of our alumni just is working at Universal Studios as Elena in the Zorro show. And I like was in that audience, and I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be me. Like, I know that already. I'm gonna go to this school and I'm gonna go do that. The show is now closed, but if there was the show, I
If it
would
came
be in
back,
it.
you
I
got
would
it.
be in it.
Revival.
Please. I just want to be Zorro. But
You would make an amazing
Anyway.
Zorro. You would. I have to say,
appreciate you.
you'd make an
Thank you.
amazing Zorro. I would so
Thank
watch
you.
that.
We'll just put it out into the universe.
Yes.
Maybe someone.
I know in
Um,
our next few minutes, we're going to do something we always do, which is MPT has a rapid fire questions for you. And you'll just say it. And then if you have it on top of your head, spout out the answer and we'll just kind of keep it going and have fun with it.
Cool.
Dun,
Sounds good.
dun,
All right.
MPT.
Are you ready?
Oh,
Ready
yeah.
to rumble. Woo, 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 woo.
Top 3 musicals, go.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Mean Girls.
Chicago. Chicago. Hamilton, I really liked. And
Wayne Heights.
Grease.
Lion King.
Ah, okay.
Ooh,
I did
love
hear-
Lion King.
I did hear Cats in there,
Cats is my favorite.
and I
Well,
oh my
I
gosh,
got you, girl. I got
I
you.
can't.
Got me human. Got me human.
To each their own.
Don't forget Sweeney
Um,
Todd. Sorry, the
Good one.
throat slashing.
Sweetie.
I loved it. I was
Uh,
10.
Let's see. Can you each give me an album or a musician, artist that you're currently listening to?
Oh, that's so hard. Oh no.
I'm
know.
super boring. I just listen to books on tape.
I don't know if you noticed, but in the corner over here, I have almost every Chili Peppers album on vinyl.
Yeah.
And he's got a
Nice.
tattoo.
That's a lot
on
of love. That's a lot of love of the Chili's.
There's
One album I'm listening to, but their original, well, not original guitarist, but John Frusciante, who's the guitarist that they are most known for having, is coming back to the band after a 10-year hiatus. So new
Oh.
music's coming out, and I will be listening to that on repeat for sure.
I'm
That's
definitely there's my go-to is probably Lindsay Sterling because she's bomb and I love her. And then I found a new random artist that I've been listening to lately called Cosmos Sheldrake, who he is a UK-based artist who is his brother's a biologist and his parents are scientists, and all of his songs are super independent and weird, but about like marine biology.
Ooh,
And it's
I
great.
gotta get that. I gotta get
But
that.
it's like a really good song about.
They're really good. There's a song about tardigrades, and it's the cutest song ever.
Hey, what's the name again? Say the name again for me.
Cosmos Sheldrake.
Cosmos Sheldrake. All right, it's in my head.
I'm gonna
Listening to
follow
it
that
after
guy.
this.
He's fun.
To this book on tape, the trend that you're doing, book you recently read.
Well, the book
Devil in
I'm.
the Dark Water by Stuart Turton.
Oh, well, I'm a darker shade of magic type of human.
Yes.
Mm.
Nice. I'm Dante's Inferno is the one that I'm currently trying to make my way through. But I also, I'll give myself a little plug. I am currently recording an audiobook, the second in the series, called Bud by the Grace of God by S.E. Sasaki. So I'm currently recording that. And Welcome to the Madhouse is the first one in that series, available on Amazon if you want to go.
Yay.
Hey,
Good
we
job,
can listen
Mark.
to the dulcet tones of your voice. So, what are the other titles again?
Mine was Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. My book club
Is-
picked that book
oh.
for Spooky Month.
Is that about that serial killer?
No, this one is
Oh.
actually it's based in like early 1600s, and it's like a ghost story on a boat. It's like a ship
Ah.
that's going from Indonesia to Amsterdam,
Hmm.
and they're like in the middle of the ocean, and it's this like fun like whodunit Agatha Christie style novel, and it was fun.
Cool.
Maul, what was yours?
Oh, darker shade of magic. If you
Okay,
like
so what is
fantasy-
Darker Shade of Magic? Because it sounded almost like Darker Shade of like 50 Shades. I was like,
No.
"Whoa, where are you going?"
No.
Did not
No.
see you as a 50 Shades of Grey.
No.
So
It's
what's your
very
book
much
about?
Not. It's a fantasy, very it's about a bunch of different types of Londons, like all stacked on top of each other in different worlds, and
Oh.
a magician who
Super
can
good.
travel
Okay, I'm
between
getting
them.
that. That's my
It's
style of
good.
books.
awesome.
That's my
That's
style of books.
Very good.
What is the top iconic fight scene in a show that you love?
God.
What is the iconic one that everybody must see?
There's a billion, and there's a billion that people have seen, but one that is a little less well known is and I can't even remember which of the police stories it is, but it's one of the police story movies with Jackie Chan, where he does a whole fight naked running through the street, and he
He's not naked. He's.
I
covered
know
with
which one you're
clothes.
talking about. Iconic.
So
Anything Jackie Chan does, I'm like, you're amazing.
it's just amazing. He is my favorite coordinator, choreographer.
We could do a whole thing on him.
Does, and it's brilliant, and it's because he just takes the time. He has this amazing sequence at the end where there's this like 100-yard long piece of fabric that he wraps around himself into a toga, and it took, I think, 90 takes because he just wanted to get it right, and he just had to get it. So just what he does.
Wow.
Awesome.
What's
any
the
other
show
big
that
one?
you're currently excited about right now?
The Wheel of Time. That's about to come
Yeah!
out. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I want to see that
Me too.
really
The books
bad.
are so good. The books are so good. Yeah, the
Books are
in terms of
fabulous.
TV shows. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a book reader, and I get really upset if the film doesn't match. Like, I haven't even seen Dune yet because I really want to because I love Dune. And I have to
I
admit,
wanna read
1970s
Dune.
was actually really good. I was like, well, it actually followed the crazy book. But I don't know. I'm scared to watch the new Dune because I'm like, will it live up? Will it live up?
Right.
I hear it's
What else? In terms of TV shows, I'm excited about the Great British Bake Off. Right now. That's what I've been watching.
What final piece of advice would you give anybody who wants to become a fight choreographer and look at that as a profession? What advice could you give them?
learn how to be on
Learn
set.
Yeah. Learn how to just learn as much as you can. As much as you possibly can. Get as good as you possibly can at everything else. Because once you know how to do it, you can direct it. You don't have to be able to do everything, but you need to have the knowledge of it.
Keep working every day. Just do it every day. Practice every day. It's the 10,000 hours rule. Just throw. I mean, I don't know collectively how many punches we've thrown. Gotta be. I couldn't even give you
Years worth.
years worth. And yeah, for all of us, we're all a decade into this roughly, and so that's 30 years of experience collectively, and the amount of and learn the basics and get so good at the basics that you can do it without thinking, looking, whatever. Just learn the basics and get so good at it that nobody can deny that was what they're looking for. Because with the basics, and if you can do the basics, then everything else, the harder stuff will fall into place and you'll get better at them. But just get your basics down.
To tack onto that super fast, also while you're doing it every day and you're getting as good as you could possibly get, also work on your communication skills and being able to voice your prestige and voice your excellence, because if someone has the opportunity to steamroll you and say no, you don't actually know it, they will. So speaking as a woman in the industry, and it can be very frustrating, just making sure that you stand up for yourself, you acknowledge when you're incorrect, and you move through it with grace. But communication.
Also remember, everyone is there around to help you. I don't know, especially in the stunt industry, everyone is so willing to help and very much very giving with their time. So just don't be afraid to use other people's time.
So there is guidance out there for people.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to
If
hear.
you want to know something, you can literally find, the world is so small. The industry is small, the stunt world is even smaller, and everybody knows everybody. And if you want to learn something, a connection will have it, or a connection of a connection will have it, and you just need to ask. And more often than not, they'll help you.
And we can get very detailed, so we would love to go into it, but it's just we don't have the time to really break things down because there's so many tiny little nuances that will be specific to each person.
Very cool. And if our listeners want to reach out to you, how do they find A Fight a Day?
We're on Instagram at A Fight a Day. We have a Facebook page at A Fight a Day. And more specifically, we have an email. Remind me of the email, Selena.
I think it's
at afighttoday.com, right?
I think so. I gotta find it, but once I find it, I'll send it to you. so
And
you
we
can
will
tell me what
post
is.
it up too. We'll definitely post it up for everybody to do. But
Oh,
we
super,
all
so
we are a
cute.
social life, so I'm definitely a big fan of Insta and Facebook. So definitely go find them on there. I just want to thank Mal, Selena, Mark from A Fight a Day for coming on today for a Play Upstream podcast hosted by Michael Philip Thomas, aka MPT, and
Hello.
Marissa Pitts. So thank you all very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Good
Bye.
seeing your
Ciao.
faces.
Bye. You
Bye.
too.
This is the Play Upstream Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Play Upstream podcast.
If you'd like to contribute, you can subscribe to patreon.com/playupstream or at PayPal at playupstream@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Play Upstream to keep up with all of our other exciting projects.
Enjoy yourself and support art.